Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Summit, where you will learn to raise your frequency to connect more deeply with yourself, your soulmate, and the divine. I'm your host, Waxela Sananda, and today I am so looking forward to this conversation with Thaddeus Owen. He is a very well-known biohacker, and he is full of very useful information on raising your frequency and connecting. So I'm looking forward to that, but first, please join me in an alignment process so we can all really get connected and present for this conversation. So just begin by closing your eyes and tuning into your breath. And deepen your breath into your belly, expanding your belly on the inhale and contracting the belly on the exhale. And now tune in to your heart center and the light within your heart. And as you're breathing into your heart, allow that light to expand out around your chest. And then connect to the central sun far above your head. This is a source of divine masculine light, and connect into the heart of the central sun, that heart light of the divine masculine, and bring that down into the top of your head, all the way to the bottoms of your feet and the base of your spine. And then breathe that light into your heart center, joining with the light from within. And now connect in to the light in the center of the earth. This is the heart light of the Mother Earth, the center of the divine, feminine, nurturing energy. And breathe that heart light of the earth up through the layers of the earth like roots, with liquid crystal plasma entering into the base of your spine and the bottoms of your feet, and moving up to the top of your head. And then breathe that divine feminine earth light into your heart center, joining with the light from above and the light within you, creating a trinity portal of light, and expand that out around your body and connect it to every other person listening or watching at this time and across all time and space. And then connect your energy to myself and Thaddeus so that you may be fully open and present for whatever information is here today that's for your highest good. And remember, we are all connected, one community, doing our ascension process together, and we are all here to support each other. And so with that, go ahead and open your eyes, feeling more present than before. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Thaddeus Owen. Welcome, Thaddeus.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Now, Thaddeus and I were introduced by a mutual friend, Stephen Klein, and Thaddeus is a holistic health expert. He's a biohacking expert and also a chemical engineer, I understand. And he brings together ancient techniques along with modern technologies, and combines them to be like a unique form of biohacking. And I know some of the watchers are not even familiar with the term biohacking. I only recently became aware of this. So for starters, could you explain to us, Thaddeus, what is biohacking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came across this concept about 12 years ago. I was studying my master's in holistic nutrition, but my background, I was developing at the time pharmaceutical products. So I have a degree in chemical engineering, so very sciencey. And I came across this concept called biohacking, and I was interested. It intrigued me. And what it is, essentially, it boils down to our biology. We can raise our vibration, we can raise our frequency, which means we optimize the biology that we have in this incarnation today to its optimal level. So most doctors and studies tell you how to be average. What's the average amount of vitamin C? What's the average blood, markers in a human that make them, within a normal range? We don't want to be normal. We want to, in biohacking, optimize our internal environment, so that environment inside of ourselves and around ourselves. You probably see here the red lights and other things because the
Yes.
sun isn't up yet. So how do we change the environment around us to optimize and be at the peak of the physiology that we were given at all times? So mentally, emotionally, and physically, we want to embody the highest health level that we can in the body that we were given. That's what biohacking is all about, is using the latest science and ancient practices and kind of combining those to overcome this modern lifestyle to make us optimally healthy.
Wow, I love that. And it goes so perfectly with the ascension journey because it's all about optimizing and using what's available to us to, to make us a higher frequency being so that we can interface with higher, higher light, higher frequencies, and also at the same time be more present in our bodies. And so I love how it's really just another way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so I know that you have kind of a specialized way of being with all of this, where you bring in the ancient practices. Can you tell us about what are some of those practices and techniques that you
Yeah,
study?
absolutely. So there's two, well, really three main ancient practices that keep us optimally healthy, and especially in today's environment are really important. So if we think about today's environment, we are losing electrons. So electrons are kind of one of the currency of vibration and energy and health. And so the more electrons we have, actually the healthier we are, the more energy we can create, and the better our vibration. We can have that energy to raise it up. And we're losing them from all sorts of things in our modern environment, which we can talk about, but the ways to gain them back are ancient. So being connected barefoot to the earth. The earth has all these invisible signals in it that most people don't really think about on a daily basis. But once you put somebody in space, think about an astronaut in space. They're away from all these signals that are invisible, and they lose health, they lose bone density, they lose muscle mass. They have all these issues that come up because they're outside of the earth's magnetic field, they're outside of the earth's Schumann resonance. These are all invisible frequencies that the earth gives us. And when we're barefoot, connected to the earth, we actually gain electrons. So the earth is this huge source of electrons that actually comes from the sun from above through lightning, and the lightning puts the electrons into the earth. We can soak those up if we're barefoot, but we're insulated all day long. So being barefoot, connected to the earth, ancient practice, all peoples would have been connected barefoot way more often than we are. And when they had shoes on or something, they would have been natural materials that would have still connected them to the earth. Unlike today, the other thing is sunlight, connecting to that sunlight. So we had a little bit of that in the present setting exercise we had this morning, connecting to that sun. You can connect physically to that sun, to those invisible photons that are coming through and the visible light. So standing outside, as much of your body completely naked to the sun as possible, as all animals and plants on this planet are exposed to the sun and soak up the sun every day, we humans tend to hide from the sun nowadays. So reconnecting with the earth and the sun, and then taking advantage of the environment that you are local to. So right now, you can see snow outside my window. It's time to cold adapt. So an ancient practice of allowing yourself to adapt to this cold has huge benefits to it. And most of us ignore that. We turn the heat up, or in the summer, we turn the air conditioning on, and we never vary the temperature that we're exposed to beyond a certain amount.
Wow. Yeah. Or move to Florida like I did.
That's another way to stay warm.
But I can have the doors open a lot of the year in Florida, and so I'm getting at least that natural air. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I love the warm. So I,
Well,
I
even so, and even in Florida, so just because you're in a super warm environment, even on the equator, let's say, you
Mhm.
can still cold adapt or do cold thermogenesis. Um, Super easy. All you have to do is be colder than air temperature. So, swimming pool that's a little colder than air temperature. Some people do ice baths, cold showers, whatever. But any of those things, swimming in the ocean, those are all things where your body temperature drops below the air temperature. And all of that is ancient practice of getting a little cooler than the outside air.
Okay, interesting. That's really, yeah, I like that. And I don't want to jump in an ice bath just yet, but I can get in the ocean or a cold pool or cool pool. Um, I wanted to mention about the sun, and like basking in that sunlight. So, society today tells us put on sunscreen, cover up, don't look at the sun, make sure you're covered head to toe or you're going to get skin cancer. There's all of this information out there. How do you respond to that? You're saying the exact opposite.
Yes. So here's the thing that people are missing. The studies on sunlight being dangerous, okay, that was one study done indoors under artificial UV light for babies. So they were trying to get rid of a specific jaundice in babies. They exposed them to ultraviolet light, and they found some issues with that. Okay, that's not natural sunlight.
Mm.
Natural sunlight, if you think about it, we humans, if you believe in God or spirit, or you believe in evolution or both, whatever you believe in, we were designed to live on this earth. And if we were designed to live on this earth, we've always been designed to live under the light of the sun. We didn't come in to live in these boxes until very recently, which means there's no other animal or plant on the planet that is afraid of the sun except us. You have to ask yourself why we're so afraid of the sun. So there are ways to utilize the sun safely. And what I do is I teach people how to use the sun safely, because there's a way to safely expose yourself to sun and take advantage of all the amazing benefits of the sunlight. Now, there are multiple studies. If you look at studies of all cause mortality, that's death from all causes, the people that have more sunlight in every time they've done this study, there's at least 6 of those studies that have been done over the last 20 years. Every one of those studies shows that people that get more sunlight die from disease less often than people that get less sunlight. That means the more sunlight you get, the less risk of dying of any disease known to man. So people talk about skin cancer from sun, and that's a real thing. Like, you can get skin cancer from the sun. This is my opinion. I am not a doctor, but all the literature that I've read and everything that I've studied, the skin cancer that you can get from the sun, if you're not necessarily doing it safely, is far more survivable, like 99.9%, versus the 10 other cancers or so that you would get by avoiding the sun. So we know that sunlight is protective against all these other types of cancers, of which those are less survivable. So yes, there is a little bit of danger, but that danger can be taken away largely by getting safe sun exposure. So one of the things is getting sunlight at dawn. At dawn, all over the world, there's no ultraviolet light in the sun. And if that's what we believe can cause some of the cancer, you can expose all of your body, including, my opinion, my eyes. I don't tell other people to do this, but I do look directly at the sun. These are special glasses. They're not prescription. I don't wear glasses. And I've been doing this for many, many, many years. So I believe what I do is I look at the sun, or at least about 15 degrees off the sun in the morning, called sun gazing. That's an ancient practice. Almost all cultures have had some sort of practice of sun gazing. But in the morning, within about 20 minutes of the sun rising, there's no ultraviolet light. And so your skin can be exposed, your eyes can be exposed, and there shouldn't be, an issue. And I've never found that for myself to be an issue. That is also protective against ultraviolet later in the day. So that means if you get this morning sunlight, it allows you to soak up more ultraviolet sunlight during the intense part of the day. So you can build vitamin D. You can get all these other benefits from the ultraviolet light, including building melatonin, building thyroid hormone. Now, how many people do we know have messed up thyroid? These things can be built and programmed through sunlight, through the eye from the ultraviolet light. But when we come indoors, these windows block 100% of the ultraviolet light. And then we wear sunglasses and we wear sunscreen. So what happens is our eyes, they can read ultraviolet light. They can read blue light. They have receptors to do that. But when we cover them up, our body has no idea what intensity of ultraviolet light is out there, and then it doesn't know how to properly protect our body. When we take off the sunglasses and we allow the natural light into our eye, the receptors pass information to our body that says, this is what's happening outside. This is what level of ultraviolet light is going on. And this is how the body should absorb the light for optimum health and performance. And this is how to protect itself from too much of it. But again, we cover that up, and then the skin gets this signal of high ultraviolet light that the eye never read, and then we get issues.
Yeah, wow, that's one really easy biohack for people right there. Just stop wearing your sunglasses all the time, right?
Yes. So some people are actually really sensitive to the sun because they always have the glasses on. They, blue eyes are more sensitive to the sun, and then they're always indoors. What we find is if people get out at dawn where there's no ultraviolet light and begin exposing themselves to dawn light. So I've got a couple friends that they never could go outside even on a cloudy day without sunglasses. They started doing the morning sunlight thing. They never have to wear sunglasses ever now. And in fact, that one person, he lost 16 pounds. So he needed to lose some weight. He's a health coach. He knows what he's doing. He didn't modify any of his diet. The only thing he changed was getting outside at dawn every day. And within 2 months, he lost 16 pounds that he's been trying to do forever and couldn't do it. All he did is get morning sun. It can make a huge, huge difference.
Wow, that's incredible. Just that sunlight, who I never would have thought sun could make you lose weight, but that's a great extra side effect, right?
Absolutely.
Something about that. My son, I think that we maybe do this automatically. My son, a few years ago, he's 8. We got on the bus every morning right around sunrise, and he would walk out of the house and the sun would be coming up and he would just stop in front of it and stare at it. And I never interfered. I never told him to do it or not to do it. I figured he knows what he's doing. He's doing it naturally. I didn't ever say anything to him about it. I just let him have that moment. One day the neighbor came across the street and saw him doing it. And she's like, don't look at the sun. It'll burn your eyes, And I'm like, no, it won't. It's fine. And, but, and she's trying to protect him. I understand. Because that's a pervasive idea, but we're trying to buck society's view of the sun is dangerous when we do stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's a real thing. If you stare at the sun at noon, it's probably not a good idea, but your body has protective mechanisms. It'll make your eye water to cool it down. It'll make you blink. It'll make you turn away. But at dawn sun, that doesn't happen. And think about all the animals that are living outdoors. They're not wearing sunglasses. We were not born wearing sunglasses or with special lenses over our eyes to protect ourselves from the sun. We were born with neuropsin. That's a receptor in our eye to read the ultraviolet light and to tell our body, hey, there's too much ultraviolet light, don't look at the sun. But when we see it at dawn, there is no ultraviolet light and we don't get the message to turn away. Now, again, utilize your own comfortability with doing anything. So I never tell anyone to look at the sun. I will tell you what I do, and I will tell you that I have not been harmed by it. In fact, I've been massively helped by it. But you have to decide, what's best for you. Again, look at everything on planet Earth, and it's not designed to hide from the sun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then also, like being in Florida, I have the luxury of being able to walk on the beach in the sand. And here in Sarasota, we have 99.9% quartz sand, which is just amazing to walk on. It never gets too hot and it's just lovely. But I notice when I do that morning beach walk, I feel so energized and I try and get out at sunrise if at all possible. And that just lights me up for the whole day. What's happening when people walk on the ground in the sand? How does that actually work? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that's happening in our society, think about the shoes you wear, rubber-soled shoes. Those are insulators. You're insulated from the earth. You live in these boxes, which are also insulated from the earth. So wood is insulated if it's dead, so your wood floors, not insulated when it's a living tree, different. Then it's a conductor of electricity. But
Mm.
everywhere we go, there's two things happening. We're insulated from the earth and we're taking on inflammatory charge. So microwave radiation from your cell phone and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And all of that is getting into the body, but it's not allowed to leave the body because we're insulated. We don't allow anything to move between us and the earth. So when you walk barefoot on the earth, especially on the beach, because there's the sand, there's the water, sometimes the sand is a little bit moist, that is a huge conductor of electrons. We're able to release the inflammatory charge, the positive charge from our body into the earth, the largest source of negative charge, which is electrons. So we're releasing this inflammation, so it makes us feel better. We're breathing in ozone, clean ozone that's coming from basically the ocean waves hitting the shore. There's this barrier that is between the ocean and the land, and that creates this cleaning ozone, which can help us. And then you're gaining electrons. So how do you raise frequency and vibration? You do it through energy. Everything is energy. And when we gain energy that helps us heal, that helps us build more energy in the body, that comes up through your feet. So everyone's feet and hands have sweat glands. Why do our hands and feet sweat? Maybe it's because creating a moist environment allows electrons, negative charge, to more easily flow into our body. So when we're connected to the earth with those feet, we're absorbing those Earth's electrons that were put there from the cosmos through lightning into the earth, and we absorb them into our body, and that allows us to have more energy. It raises our vibration. When we have the sun overhead and we're connected to the earth and the magnetic field is around us and the Schumann resonance, there's all these invisible frequencies our body makes use of and is trained to that we never even know about. We don't see them, we can't smell them, we can't hear them, but they're there and they are giving information to our body. So as we absorb that information, it tells our body we're in the right environment. It actually allows our body to build thyroid hormone properly. That thyroid hormone is coded from an amino acid. That amino acid gets coded through the eye. So when the sunlight comes in the eye, it tells your tyrosine and tryptophan, here's how to make thyroid hormone. Here's how to make serotonin, which is going to make melatonin at night. These are hormones that help your body stay optimally healthy. They actually get programmed by information, invisible information from the frequency and vibration of sunlight. But again, most of us, it's all invisible. We don't know what's happening. So we cover up against all that. We get incorrect information from artificial man-made lights indoors, and we cover up from everything outdoors. So that information, it's this huge download of information to your body when you're on that beach, barefoot, in the sun, with the surf coming in. It's just a huge information flow that keeps your body healthy because it's the right information that you are meant to have.
I love that. And I guess that really explains why so many people are drawn to the beach. And I see so many people running in the sand. I always walk right at the edge where the water meets the sand. That's just where I love to be. And that it kind of explains why. And everybody's smiling at at the beach.
Yeah.
When I go for a beach walk, they're just all these beaming smiles. I love that too. But it also explains the difference of like when I go for a walk, when I don't have time to go to the beach and I do my morning walk on the concrete around the neighborhood, I don't get that same like lit up feeling, but I'm wearing running shoes. And I'm on the concrete and I'm just not, even though it feels good to be out and do that, it's not quite as fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's being connected to the earth makes a huge difference, and it allows us to take advantage of that information flow a lot more easily. However, still being outside is great. So people that go for runs at dawn, they have this extra information flow from that sunlight that
Yeah.
people that don't do that at all are going to miss. And again, like why are we happier out in the sun and on the beach? It could be because a lot of people are on vacation, but really, and in the sunlight, our eyes through our brain are building dopamine, like this happiness neurotransmitter, and they're building these other um, actual physical things in the body through the information of sunlight. So we know that we can actually build physical things like hormones and neurotransmitters that keep us healthy and happy just through sunlight. Again, sunlight is just these little packets of energy and information, and everything, including our bodies, are just made up of energy. So the information transferred through that frequency of sunlight builds real physical compounds in the body that make us healthy. And we miss all of those things when we turn on artificial lights and shield ourselves from the outdoors, we get this information from these man-made kind of synthesized, processed lights. It's almost like, I call it junk lighting, and it does not give your body the information it expects, and that can cause chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good reason to even just take 5-minute breaks if you have to work, inside all day. Just go out and be in the sun for a few minutes and soak up some real light so you can, get balanced. So let's see, what else do I want to cover here? There's so much. I know I saw some shoes on your website. Are those do they allow, are there shoes that we can buy that allow us to soak that up the earth energy?
Yeah, absolutely. So most shoes have rubber soles. So one of the things we encourage people to do is to wear barefoot type shoes, because our feet are kind of created to walk on the earth, and we kind of put them in casts and they get atrophied, and people's feet kind of form weird shapes because of the shoes. So we like barefoot shoes. Most barefoot shoes are still insulated. So there's two things that we do. One is, I've had shoes specially designed for myself that have a leather insole and a leather outer sole. Leather is conductive. So leather will allow you to ground. So for men and women's shoes, if you're able to find some with a leather inner and outer sole, those are connected to the ground. They'll allow you to bring electrons into your body and dump inflammation away. So we do have those shoes that we wear. There's two other ways that you can do that. You can ground, called grounding, but any pair of shoes. You can make any pair of shoes conductive. So there's a number of ways to do that. One way is you can use these static heel straps. They're $10 on Amazon. They're used in microelectronics laboratories when they make those silicone chips for computers. And they can't have any static electricity. The people have to be grounded, or when they touch the chip, they'll fry it. So they put these little heel straps on any shoe that they're wearing. They just slip over the back of the shoe, and they ground the shoe and your body to the earth. So in the winter, it's 10 below zero. It was 10 below zero yesterday. I can't walk outside barefoot. So I use these grounding heel straps on my winter boots, and they continue to keep me grounded even in a winter environment. Or you could, wear them if you have a pair of rubber soled shoes. And the other way is some people actually sew copper, little copper chips. So they take a copper coil and they run it through the bottom of their shoe into the sole, and that metal is a conductor of electricity or electrons. So that metal sewn into the bottom of the shoe usually isn't noticeable to anybody wearing it, but it does allow you to stay connected to the earth. So there are some shoes that are made to be grounded. They're hard to find, but you can ground any shoe that you own.
Wow, that's fascinating. And so when you're wearing your boots and you're outside in the winter, and with this, you can still, even through the snow, or you can still get that grounding energy from the earth.
Absolutely. So the earth might be frozen, but remember, water is very conductive. So it will conduct electricity. That's why standing in wet grass or wet sand or in the ocean itself or any body of water, a lake, a river, those are both insulating. So you are able to be protected from EMF that's coming all around. It's a natural Faraday cage to allow your body to relax in a primal environment, but it also conducts all that electricity, the DC electric current from the electrons into your body. So snow is just water, frozen water. And so as we stand on the frozen snow, it will conduct those electrons from the earth into us. It's definitely not as efficient as being barefoot, but when it's 10 below zero out here, it is impossible just about to be barefoot for longer than a few
Yeah.
seconds.
Probably not recommended.
No, I wouldn't. I tried it yesterday and I lasted about 30 seconds. And
Wow.
yeah, it's very challenging.
Yeah, that sounds cold. Well, that's fascinating that you can still get the grounding. And now what about concrete?
Mhm.
Do you get anything out of people in cities running on concrete? Can you still ground when you
Mhm.
only have sidewalks and streets?
You can. So it depends on the material. So asphalt is a petroleum product and it is not conductive. Concrete and cement are natural materials and they are conductive, and they usually have metal rebar run through them. So most concrete and cement are going to be conductive and allow you to ground. Yes. So if you're in a city, I still recommend people get to an area with grass. That's way easier to ground. But a lot of times in the city, that grass is going to be sprayed with chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides, and other things that you don't want on your feet. So then I would still say ground there, but maybe use copper or grounding straps or leather soled shoes so you're not absorbing all those toxins into your body.
Yeah, I'm thinking of golfers too. I know the golf courses are highly sprayed, but they're out on the grass so long. If they just put the those grounders on their shoes, they can still be getting that positive energy.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, do you is breath work a part of the biohacking system or
Yeah,
lifestyle?
absolutely. So breath work is huge, and people practice all sorts of different types of breath work. So from we borrow from Kundalini yoga, breath of fire, to increase energy. And there's a man, very famous man, who's called Wim Hof. And
Mhm.
Wim Hof is, an expert in cold adaptation and using cold as a teacher. And he has a very specific method of breathing. It's called the Wim Hof method, and it kind of borrows a little bit from Kundalini yoga and some other ancient practices. I would say that in the biohacking world is the most common way of doing breathing, because it is supposed to allow you to adapt to cold and to be out in the cold without the cold response making you tense up and have an increase in cortisol and get stressed. But I be able to use the cold much more, uh, at least a lot longer than normal. And that cold can reduce inflammation. It can improve performance and longevity. It can basically burn your own body fat and begin to build brown adipose tissue or brown fat. And brown fat is more metabolically active. It's associated with better health outcomes. And it actually creates heat instead of just energy. So our body makes energy from ATP in our mitochondria. But what it can also do, instead of making energy, is it can make heat. And it makes heat from that brown body fat typically. So yeah, mostly the breath work people are using are two things: the Wim Hof method, or they call this other method box breathing. So it's basically just a certain number of seconds of in breath, breath hold, and out breath, and a breath hold to create a box. So it's usually 7 seconds in, 7 seconds hold, 7 seconds out, 7 seconds breath hold, and start back over. And it's this box breathing. And that is supposed to help you focus and just calm the nervous system down. Those are kind of the two main things that we hear in the biohacking space, but there's millions of different ways of doing breathing techniques that people
Yeah.
utilize.
Yeah, there really are. I'm a big fan of breath work. I'm a breath work teacher as well. So that's interesting. And I know that that's so important for so many things to work in the body and for releasing trauma. Breath work is one of the best ways if you're struggling with some emotional stuff, the trauma can really come out. And I've heard you address trauma in like emotional issues. How is that worked with in the world of biohacking or just in your own philosophy?
So one of the things that surprised me is I had a lot of inner emotional work to do personally, and I had been avoiding it for 35 years because I was scared. I didn't want to tell anybody that I had a problem or I needed help. And so I just kept it all inside, and I had massive social anxiety to where if I was talking one-on-one with someone, I would just start sweating. I couldn't give a presentation, literally couldn't give one until I was 36 years old. And so I had a lot of inner emotional work and trauma to release, but I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know how to ask for help, and I was scared. The thing that I found in the biohacking space is this inner emotional work, trauma release exercises are a key, a very key and a main part of biohacking that almost nobody talks about. And so doing that inner emotional work and releasing past traumas is kind of this underbelly of biohacking that a lot of the top level biohackers are doing, but it's not very highly and publicly discussed. So there's all sorts of exercises I learned through biohacking that help me. One is like TRE, trauma release exercise, where you're using different techniques to allow trauma to leave the body kind of actively, without knowing what that trauma is or where it's from, but you're allowing it to leave through a special exercise. There's all sorts of biohacking devices that are coming out now as well to help relax the body's nervous system and allow trauma to release. And there's lots of breathing techniques, and there's some inner emotional techniques. I trained under Dave Asprey, who's kind of the most famous person in the biohacking space. He kind of coined the term biohacking back in 2005. And when I went to train with him in the first class of kind of what they were calling back then bulletproof coaches, it was kind of a life coach. We thought we were going to learn all these biohacking techniques. And all we did for 2 days is sit in a hotel room with 150 other people and learn how to do inner emotional work and talk about our feelings. It was extremely uncomfortable for me, but it was probably the most important work, that inner emotional work, that I could have ever done in my life.
That's so powerful. I would say trauma release and emotional work is foundational for all of this work, whether it's, all of the spirituality work, all of the ascension work. We've got to get rid of that stuff so that we can bring the higher frequencies in. And if you're just trying to go for like the high vibes, the high frequencies, the connection without releasing that trauma, that's called spiritual bypass. And you're not able to really embody the ascension codes, embody the frequencies, and be present, because you're trying to bypass the yucky stuff. And it's not fun. Like you said, that's, nobody wants to do trauma work. It's, nobody's like, oh yay, I can't wait to go look at my emotions and everything that upset me in my childhood. But once you do that, it just opens you up in such a way, you're like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that. It really is freedom. I mean, there's nothing that creates freedom in the human experience like getting vulnerable and excavating those emotions so that you can be open and free and connect. And that helps people get over anxiety. It helps people just be able to connect with other people. And that's so
100%.
important.
Yeah, I mean, what I was kind of taught to do and always had been doing is when these uncomfortable emotions would come up, for me, anxiety or fear, I would push them down. It's like these hot air balloons kind of rising up, and we stuff them back down, and we stuff enough of them down, all of a sudden they pop up, and we have, for me, panic attacks, or I'd get super
Mhm.
anxious, and I couldn't figure out why, and I felt super overwhelmed by those emotions because I had been suppressing them so often that all of a sudden they'll bubble up when you least expect it, and that would just ruin me in terms of giving presentations and talking to others and advancing my career and healing myself. And so that's kind of how we're taught, is like, don't feel the uncomfortable things, and the inner work of allowing those things to come up, to be present and just take notice of them, and then allow them to release. That is so important, and that helped me hugely in how I was able to advance both my career and my learning, so that now I can actually teach other people. I was afraid to even talk to people one-on-one, or give a presentation, so I couldn't even share what I was learning. So now I'm able to just educate people so much more easily because I did that work. And most people, again, it's uncomfortable. You want to avoid it. Nobody wants to deal with yucky feelings, right? But it's all a process of being a human and being on this planet that we're on, that we have to go through these things. And if we're going to upgrade our spirit, if we're going to raise our vibration, like, you have to allow those times of uncomfortableness and know that they'll pass. It's a short time, and we have to go through all the emotions of life and not just ignore some and only have the ones that we think are good.
Absolutely. And one of the ways that you can start doing that is just by, and it's never done. Like, I've done 30 years of emotional release work, and stuff still comes up for me, just like everybody else. But one of the things that I find really helpful is just being vulnerable. And like, I've learned, and it took me a long time to learn to say this, but like, if I'm feeling something upsetting or having an experience with someone, I will just say, like, you know what, I'm feeling this way right now. And I don't know, I don't know why, but I just want you to know, because people are feeling, they can pick that up anyway. And so if you just start to become vulnerable and say what you're feeling and not blame somebody else, which is like, hey, I gotta share what I'm feeling right now, then you're not hiding it. Then you get used to like, let yourself feel what you're feeling, and sometimes share that with the person you're with. It starts to kind of open that door to feel more comfortable to just let it out. Um,
I like that. That's not something that I've explored actually before. So that's something maybe I'll take with me and try that out.
Good. Yeah. It really helps. And it's not hard once you start to do it. It's just like a practice, especially men. I think women are a little more open to sharing their emotions, but I think men in our society, it's not a practice at all that men express or taught to express their emotions. Maybe that's changing now. I mean, I think parents are encouraging their kids to be more open now, but certainly in the past that hasn't been. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know you do retreats. Can you tell me, is that something you do often? And what would a retreat with you have, like, what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have spent the last 12 years kind of learning these things in biohacking, all these techniques, and trying them out. So biohackers, one of the main things we do is self-experiment. So we read the latest science and we study ancient practices, and we say, like, it's going to take 5 to 20 years for these latest science things to come to the consumer. We want them now, and we want to see if they work. So we do a ton of self-experimentation and find out what works. So being able to teach that to other people is really important, because part of the community is, here's what worked for me, here's how I did it. Maybe this can work for you, whether it's solving a health issue, whether it's improving cognitive function, whatever it is, we love to share. So I had this idea, and I partnered with a group of people here in Minnesota. So I'm in Wisconsin, but within the Twin Cities of Minnesota area. They had a retreat center. They were ex-professional nurses, and they wanted to do functional medicine. And they said, this biohacking thing intrigues us. So we really just set up a retreat called Biohacking Retreat. We invited a bunch of people in the space for free, and we just said, let's figure out how to make this work and what people want to get out of it. So we did a first one for free. People loved it. We were there for 3 days. They wanted to stay for 7. And it was amazing. We tried out different technologies that people couldn't get access to because they're either expensive or in a different city. And we taught each other what we knew. So out of that, we found that there was enough interest that we now host biohacking retreats 2 to 3 times a year. And they are following different themes. So we had one biohacking retreat that was all about electromagnetic frequencies. So we are beings of frequency. We are beings of resonance. And what we don't understand is all of these frequencies, at least many of them that are outside the visible light frequency, are invisible to us, and they affect our body negatively or positively without us knowing. So we had an entire retreat where we brought in experts from around the world. In fact, the one expert we brought in has now gone on to actually lead for Robert Kennedy Jr. the entire 5G and EMF world that he now dabbles in. So she is an attorney, and she came and educated us on electromagnetic frequencies. And we had an expert who's a building biologist. So we taught people all about these invisible frequencies, the 5,500 peer-reviewed research studies that these invisible frequencies affect the body. And so it was all about that and how to protect yourself and how to make use of the beneficial ones. So that was one retreat. And then every single year we run in February in northern Minnesota a cold adaptation retreat. So we have people from Argentina and Australia and New Zealand come to this retreat. They come from 120 degrees Fahrenheit where they are to last year it was 20 degrees below zero when they arrived.
Wow.
And we go through an entire weekend, a 4-day weekend, with the right type of food for the environment and for a cold adapted diet. And we teach them how to safely adapt and make use of the cold, so that by the end of that weekend, we cut a hole in the ice, and everyone, including the people from Argentina and Australia, got in that water and were comfortable in there. It might not have been something that they would stay in for 20 minutes, which people here in the Twin Cities will do, but they stayed in for a minute and they were comfortable with it, and they didn't, freak out. And then they took that home with them of how to cold adapt, and they basically the benefit, that mental benefit of saying, I did this thing that I never thought I would do, and I did it safely, and I did it with a group of people. And so we teach, what's a cold adapted diet, what's a seasonal diet, how do we do all these things with our mind? So we had one person teach NLP. We had a breathing instructor. So all this occurs in a much more intimate setting, in a retreat setting. And then we run that every year here in northern Minnesota. And then we also ran one on the East Coast this year in New Hampshire at a farm. And so that was all about, again, local environment. We foraged the food. We talked about place. We talked about how to connect with the earth and the sun in your place in order to stay optimally healthy. So people invite us to retreats kind of around the world, and we kind of pick and choose what makes most sense for us. But typically it's a weekend of just really immersing yourself in these principles of biohacking and learning how to upgrade and optimize your own body.
Wonderful. That sounds amazing. Um, I feel like we need to discuss the diet. So, we wouldn't be complete without addressing, is there a biohacking diet? Is it different for different seasons? What is that? What is that all about?
So there's definitely a diet, and almost everybody in the biohacking space follows some sort of diet. It is typically ketogenic, low carb, high fat diet. That's kind of the typical biohacking diet that almost everyone tends to fall into in the biohacking space. Um, a lot of us, myself included, are ex-vegan and vegetarians. So I was vegan for a year. I was vegetarian for 2 years after that. And then I very purposefully said, this was back in the 90s when I was vegan and vegetarian. It was very challenging. But what I had learned about kind of the industry, the meat industry and the animal industry, I couldn't be part of that. Especially when we talk about raising our vibration, like the vibration of the food energy we put in our body imparts real information and vibration to ourselves. So I decided that of everything that I learned, vegan and vegetarian for me wasn't optimal. So I told myself that I would only eat meat if I raised that animal from basically from birth all the way until the end and was part of that entire process. So I raised my own cows, my own pig, my own um, chickens, and then I caught some fish and I went hunting. And I made sure that I didn't eat that meat until I went through the entire process from birth to death, and was comfortable with that and found kind of the spiritual basis for what I was doing. And then I was able to eat meat. And so I started following what was called a ketogenic diet when I got into biohacking. And then I went to this thing called a bulletproof diet, which is kind of a trademark diet by Dave Asprey from the Bulletproof Company. And then what I found is ketogenic diet, it doesn't work for everybody all the time. And my opinion, what I've learned through everything that I've studied, from the light codes, from eating for place, when you eat off your landscape, you have a watershed near you. That water is local to you, and you put that water in your body. You put the food from your local environment in the body, and that all has information stored from light and stored from your environment that feeds both your body but also your energy. And when you start buying things from Mexico and California and Australia and putting those in your body, that's not local to you. And I think that has a really big change and a really big effect on your body. So what I started doing is eating as locally and seasonally as possible. So I didn't just say like, hey, it's winter, there's no carbohydrates available here because it's snowy, so I shouldn't be eating carbs. I'm not just going to go out and buy high fat and protein foods from California. I'm going to get them from my local landscape. So I eat seasonally and locally. So everything that I try to put in my body, from the water, so I don't drink city water, but I will go to a local spring and collect that water. I put that in my body. And then I get local food from local farmers, whether it's vegetables, fruits, and proteins. And that is what I base my diet around. So right now it's winter. I follow a ketogenic diet. In the very late winter, as we start getting into late February, early March, I'm probably going to be a carnivore. That might trigger some people, but my opinion, like, there wouldn't have been a ton of extra food around, so we would have been eating what was local to our landscape that we could get. And then when spring occurs, I'll eat almost vegetarian. There's all this abundant food coming up from our landscape, so I'm going to have fruits and protein, vegetables, and maybe local eggs, things like that that I can harvest off my own landscape and that are grown here and available. I will eat those to abundance. So then I don't follow any kind of a diet except that it's local. I'm eating probably a lot higher carbohydrates, including honey. And I think those seasons through life, through our body, when we follow those seasons of the earth, we stay optimally healthy versus picking one diet and thinking we have to stick to it all year round.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I can understand, if you're looking at how people have done it through the ages, that was the only way available at one point before we became westernized. So interesting that you went to the effort to actually raise your own animals all the way through their life cycle is fascinating.
Mm.
I'm sure it gave you a different relationship with what it is to consume meat and, in that life cycle. And so for people that that can't grow their own food or their own meat, I suppose like at least you could go to local farmers markets and find resources around you to try and eat more locally so that do you have any tips on that? Like how do people that obviously not everybody's going to be able to raise their own animals or grow their own food?
Yeah,
Um,
I was very intentional. I actually went out and bought a place in the country with acreage, and I raised my own meat because to me it was just such a spiritual thing of, as we embody these physical bodies on this plane of existence, like part of the cycle of our life is we have to, unfortunately, it's kind of a weird thing that we have to kill something in order to live, whether it's a plant or an animal, and that is uncomfortable for myself and a lot of other people. And so that spiritual process in my mind of going through and understanding all of it and honoring the life of the animal and the plants that we harvest is very important. And so if you don't have that ability, because not everyone does, everywhere that I've lived, and I've lived a lot of places, I have been able to find local people that raise their own vegetables and meats and eggs and buy directly from them, which supports your local economy, but it also supports getting food from your local food shed and that information that tells your body, I am in this place, I'm eating from this place, and it makes you optimally healthy. So the farmers markets are absolutely great places to go. You can look up on the internet, if you go to a search and you search for local farmer, local grass-fed beef, local pork, whatever it is that you want, local eggs, local vegetables, there's always a resource for you to find something local. And often if you buy with a group of other people, an entire pig, it's cheaper than going to the grocery store. And if you buy community supported agriculture, you're supporting that local farmer, that small farmer that's doing organic, and you're getting that fresh food. It's not like shipped from California and 25 days old. It was just picked that morning or the night before, and you're putting that right into your body. So the vibration and the frequency of that food, the light energy in that food is still so powerful than getting it from a store or somewhere else. And I think that everyone in the US right now has availability locally to find a local grower of whatever food they're looking for, and they'll be able to get access to that.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, and I appreciate that. Like telling us that yeah, go local, and we all do that. We think about that with the products we buy from a real person. But we oftentimes get removed thinking, okay, I have to find the organic, pasture raised sprouts or whatever it is, eggs, and they're not in my local grocery store. So it
Yep.
also connects you with your community. If you go looking for these resources from actual people that are growing them in your community, that's going to help you connect to the people that are interested in doing local produce and things. You're going to get connected in a better way. And I know a lot of communities have resources where we have a local store that brings in, for people that can't go to the farmers market, they just kind of collect, I can't remember what that's called, but they collect the food and the produce from various people that grow it in the area, and then they bring it all to the store and you can go pick it up, which
Yes. That's
is
called here we call that a drop site.
mhm.
So local farmers, they can't deliver to everyone, and not everyone can get to the farmer, but a lot of people want access. So here they call it drop sites. So they will have a drop site at people's homes or at businesses where they have multiple coolers that are left either outside or in a garage. And you will place an order, pay online, and they will deliver it once a week to this drop site, which for us, it's about 3 blocks away. We drive to the drop site or ride our bikes to the drop site. We get what we ordered, some local meat, some eggs, some vegetables, whatever, depending on the time of year, and we bring that home. And so that allows the farmer to make some extra money because they can connect with those consumers, but it makes it so they don't have to go to everybody's house or everyone doesn't have to come there. And again, part of this whole thing of raising frequency and vibration, like we can do a lot of these things online and we can have 5,000 Facebook friends, right? But if we're not connecting with people locally in person, it's really not optimal. And so making those connections with people that share your same values of local food or organic food or whatever it is. You get to meet them locally, and then who knows, like you might expand your network, you might make some new
Mhm.
friends, you might just, be able to get invited to their place if you wanted to fish on their property and if they've got a really good trout stream in the back, like whatever it is, like these things happen as you connect with these people locally. And I've made just some amazing and beautiful friends from searching for local food. And it's been kind of
Yeah.
almost an adventure to say, like, how do I get eggs here from a local farmer? Where do I go and who do I have to meet? And then you meet these people, and just like these people living in my community 2 blocks away that are foragers, and they go all around the world doing this foraging, and they're going to teach me how to forage off my landscape. I didn't even know they were literally living 2 houses down from me,
Oh, wow.
until I started going to some of these things to find out. And I'm like, hey, where do you live? And it's like, oh, I live right here, and I live two houses away. We should go forage this spring. And that just happened 2 weeks ago to me, and now I've got a person who's going to teach me how to forage my local
Mhm.
landscape, who's an expert, and we're going to go in about 3 months when it finally warms up. But that was just beautiful to meet someone like that, because I sought out something local to me, versus just going online and saying, like, how do I forage a mushroom, and reading it on Google or whatever.
Absolutely. I had a similar experience. I was living in Iowa before Florida. That's actually where I'm from. And I wanted raw milk, raw goat milk in particular. And I found a farm. It was like a 20-minute drive from where I was living. But once a week, and it's not legal to buy raw milk in Iowa. So the workaround there was if you bought a share in their goats, you could purchase a share of the goats, and then you're entitled to the products that come from that goat, which is the goat milk. And so there was a farm that did that, and I had a day of the week that was my day to go pick up my goat milk. And I would go get my raw goat milk, and then they would also have, it was just like a garage and a refrigerator with the milk in it, and then whatever products from the farm might be available. You never know, it could be eggs that day, it could be some produce. So you would always just go, and then it was the honor system, and you take your milk and get whatever else you want. And I really loved that. And not only that, but then I learned to make milk kefir and kefir grains, which I still continue to this day. And here in Florida, I can actually buy raw milk at a certain store, which is really nice. It's a farm that brings it in. But that did really get me connected with the community. They were having occasional classes on how to make goat milk cheese, and I got to kind of meet the community. It was a really interesting community that would go out of their way to get raw milk. It's a different type of thinking. So I really enjoyed that connection. It was really worth it to make the effort to find that and to go be a part of something that I believed in was creating better health for myself and my family, and then also creating those community connections, which are so important wherever you are.
Absolutely, yeah. Unfortunately, I live in Wisconsin, so I'm right across the border from Minnesota, but Wisconsin is the huge dairy state, and
Yeah.
we have the most draconian laws on raw milk. It is
Mm,
insane.
mm.
So, we do enjoy access to raw milk at certain times of the year, but we have to go to Minnesota to get it. And, we have to be very quiet about bringing it across the border, because it's amazing. Like this, you can eat you can go to this grocery store and you can buy raw eggs and raw meat, and you can consume that. And you cannot in any way, shape, or form purchase raw milk, because it's like this federal crime. It's just so crazy, how these laws are set up. And people should have access to do whatever they want with their body. So as a biohacker, I experiment with my biology, and I want, this is my body. I should be allowed to determine what goes into it, as long as I'm informed, and what I put into it. And that's not always legal for me to determine what goes into my own body. And that's kind of one of the big things of biohacking, is taking control over our own biology. And sometimes that involves experimentation. And I want the choice to be able to experiment and put things in my biology that I think are beneficial, regardless of what others think. So that whole movement of kind of this food freedom and choice is a huge thing in the biohacking movement as well.
Food, freedom, and choice. I love that. Well, we are close to the end of our time. I want to make sure I let everybody know about your free gift offer. You have an ebook called Biohacking 101. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as I was getting into biohacking and studying it over the years, I found a lot of people saying like, well, what is biohacking and what does it do and what is it going to do for me? And so I wrote with my business partner at the time a book called Biohacking 101 of like, this is what biohacking is, these are the main principles, and these are how to do them, and these are the benefits that you would expect by using these. So we wrote this ebook. We had a professional agency go through it and kind of clean it up for us and help us edit it. And we're offering that now as a free gift. So it is a very easy way to get introduced to the concept of biohacking and understand what it is and get some principles that you can apply in your life today to see how it works for you. So we're going to be giving that digital gift away. Very easy read. We've gotten, from the people we've released it to, a lot of really good feedback on that book itself. So we're excited for
Wonderful.
people to see that.
Thank you so much for that generous gift. And thank you for the generosity of sharing your time and all of this amazing information. I got a ton of takeaways from this conversation today. And I love that these are things that you don't have to go buy. You can just walk outside and get more sun and, walk on the earth and, you can invest in products. And there are a ton of awesome products that if you want to invest in, that's there. They're on your website, which is primalhacker.com. But you don't have to. You can start right now today just by walking outside your door and integrating some of these tips that Thaddeus has shared with us. So thank you so much, Thaddeus. I really appreciate your time and all this wonderful information and the generous free ebook that I can't wait to read. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Waxela. This was great. And I hope everyone takes these tips. Again, anyone can use these tips anywhere in the world, and they're 100% free. Yes, you can spend all this money on gadgets and supplements. Do the free things first. Most people ignore the free things because they're free, but they're so powerful. Just try them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And for everybody watching, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I hope that you got something out of this. And so please respond to today's email and let me know, what was your aha moment? What were your takeaways? What really impacted you? What are you going to try? And respond to that email and I will read your comments and I will share whatever you want me to with Thaddeus so that he knows what you've gotten out of this. And go get his free ebook on Biohacking 101. So thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and namaste.